Okay, it's over to Amy just to talk about, the CE Bill and what we as communities can do to support and how we can get the word out and build strength. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Did you want me to talk roughly for 10 minutes or something, 10, 15, and then, because it'd be nice to have loads of time for questions and, so you can ask whatever you like. But yeah, I was just going to give you a whiz through basically about what a bill is in general, what's in this one, why we're using a bill at all. Like I said, roughly what's in it, and then I'll talk a little bit about where we're at in the campaign now, a little bit about the campaign strategy. I can briefly mention COP if there's time and what we're doing around that. And then, definitely we can have plenty of time talking about what people can do, how to build support, what happens when you have tricky MPs and all this good stuff. Thanks for coming. I would equally like to just listen to hear more about CEC as well and everything you're doing. So perhaps we should do this in reverse and you should come and speak to our team and we can have a catch up, or I know there'll be lots of crossovers. We rebranded very recently to 0 Hour. We were fed up of ringing up MPs' offices and saying we're the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill Alliance. So we are 0 Hour, and it's a brand to be sort of a bit friendlier. To be, it's really important that we're cross-party and can speak to a really broad range of people. So we are 0 Hour, which is the campaign for the CEE bill. A bill is a piece of proposed legislation, as I'm sure many of you know. Most bills actually come through government, so that is a more obviously direct route. If you're the government, you can pass new legislation, new laws, no problem, and you can do so quickly. But also, if you're a campaign group, or if you can go through backbench MPs. So you can basically approach an MP, or MPs themselves normally will put forward these bills, which often are just to highlight different campaigns or different ideas, or to shine a light on something, because a bill allows you to basically have time. In Parliament, you're constantly talking about finding time and getting time for things to be heard through debates and other mechanisms. But although lots of these bills normally don't go anywhere, there's a tried and tested strategy that was developed originally in Friends of the Earth. There was a campaign many of you may know called the Big Ask, which actually led to the Climate Change Act eventually. And again, this is a strategy that has been used by some key people we're working with who used to be in Friends of the Earth, to really build up and mobilise grassroots support and pressure on MPs until you have a critical number, and then it sort of tips over and the government feel enough pressure to take it up for themselves in some form. Or it might be that different bits of the bill are taken up in other pieces of legislation. So they are sort of two routes in, if you like. So in this bill, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, basically we are thinking about the emergency in an overarching way. So it's the first piece of actual or proposed legislation that draws together the climate and nature emergencies together. Because obviously you can't, if we dealt with climate and we didn't deal with the devastation of ecosystems, then we'd be screwed anyway. and obviously the response to climate is really improved by improving our ecosystems, which act like carbon sinks and suck up carbon from the atmosphere. So the two are very, very much interlinked. And if you get those responses wrong, equally, you can have things like monocultures of forests that are actually, dead underneath. There actually aren't ecosystems that are developing there. So you really need to intertwine the two together. So in the sort of crux of the bill, if you like, is calling for an emergency strategy. So it's saying we need this now, we need an emergency strategy in place. We know that we need to go all guns blazing. So it's sort of forcing the government to really have a comprehensive plan and not sort of tinker around at the edges, which is currently happening in other legislation like the Environment Bill, Planning Bill coming up, all of this work that's happening in government. So it's calling for 2 really clear targets that sort of updates the Climate Change Act. So in the Climate Change Act at the moment, you've got this target date of net zero by 2050. We're not sort of politicking with all these dates, but we're thinking in terms of carbon budget and basically saying that you need to remain, do everything we can to remain at 1.5, which again, that sort of belies a specific carbon budget, because you could, yeah, you kind of need the two together, because if you don't cut down emissions fast enough, then you could get to net zero by 2040, but absolutely blow the budget way before. So these things have to be understood together. And then the other target, of course, is the nature one. Oh, sorry. With the climate one also, we think about equity as well. So it's this thing like in UN language, it's CBDR, which is common but differentiated responsibilities. But it basically means that some countries have the responsibility to go further and faster than others. Obviously, we've kind of benefited from the Industrial Revolution, and we've sort of grown a certain amount of wealth because of that. So we have a responsibility to cut further and faster than other countries do. And then our nature target sort of replicates that. So it also thinks about the protection of nature and that we must go further and faster than others. And it also calls for us to be nature positive by 2030. And the bill also, basically it talks a lot about the UK's role internationally and taking responsibility for our actions elsewhere. So that means both in terms of emissions. So it means that we need to account for our consumption emissions, because obviously a lot of the goods that we produce that occurs overseas, and things are transported over to the UK. So we must sort of account for all of those emissions that don't happen on UK soil. And the same with nature. If we think about supply chains, we could rewire the whole of the UK, but if we don't think about the way that we're consuming and the products that we're buying from elsewhere, and we're sort of wrecking the Amazon, for example, then it doesn't matter if the UK is this perfect, wonderful island. So we need to think about those two things together. And then crucially as well, we include a climate and nature assembly into the bill. We all know that governments are very good at not reaching their targets. And also within the bill, we don't talk much about really specific policies. So in terms of transport, heating, this kind of thing, again, it's to get wide cross-party support, but we also believe that the answer comes from the people and that you need to have a really broad range of people that come together with their life experiences to really understand where we are, why we are where we are, and understand the sort of depth of the emergency, and can then consider the appropriate responses, thinking about different trade-offs. And lots of you, I'm sure, are aware of citizens' assemblies, but I'm happy to talk about that as well. So where we are at the moment, so with the campaign, like I said, it's really important for the strategy to have lots and lots of activity in constituencies. It can kind of feel that you don't have much impact, but politicians are scared of you. It really is the case. And I think it can get dispiriting sometimes if you have MPs that completely block or send back these really neutral arguments, and you feel like you're getting nowhere at all. But we know, people won't support, they won't show support until they do, if you see what I mean. You'll never get someone say, well, yeah, maybe, sort of. They'll have to show a sort of front until actually you manage to flip them. And again, the campaign model thinks about drawing local alliances, so forming local groups, making sure that you get really diverse types of voices, so that it's not just one type of person always approaching the MP, but think about, for example, your local businesses, your local faith groups, and really gathering these sort of types of pressure and types of support. The Women's Institute has historically been really, really good at this type of campaigning. So the more variety, and also thinking about the types of voices that your MP might listen to. So it might be that your MP listens to farming communities, or it might be that your MP will listen more to local businesses, or thinking strategically in this way can be really useful as well. So at the moment we've got 115 MPs who are backing the bill. No Conservatives yet, but we do have a Conservative peer who does back, and we also have a growing number of local councils who are passing motions in support for the bill, including lots of Conservative councils as well. So that's all part of this strategy as well of building up pressure. The mechanism with the motion is that the motions are passed, and then the council writes an official letter to the MP inviting them to support the bill. So that seems to be working really well. At the moment, we have also drawn 3 of the main elements out of the bill, and we've turned them into 3 COP outcomes we can't live without, which we're going to be sort of releasing more widely next week. Obviously, a parliamentary bill isn't the right tool for COP, and we wanted to use its content to kind of build up a bit of pressure and to refer to COP. So that's the 3 outcomes are to have COP26 and COP15, which is the biodiversity COP, actually work together again to have a joint approach with climate and nature. It's also calling for COP26 to have a global carbon budget based around 1.5, and it's calling for this global goal for nature based around being nature positive by 2030 as well for COP15. So that's something that we're doing around COP this month, and I can share a link with you and more information as well. But yeah, I'll sort of leave it for any questions that you've got. But obviously, if you haven't already and you're interested, you're welcome to sign up via the website. So we send out weekly newsletters. We also have weekly share sessions where campaigners can come and learn more, or if you're new to this type of campaign, then you can come and find out more on the website as well. We have a map where you can see different alliances that have built up. Maybe some of you already part of them, which would be fantastic. Or you can just email us at campaign@ceebill.uk, which I'll put in the chat, and we can get back or help link you up with people as well. Obviously, it's so much nicer to have others around that are working on the same thing. Again, I don't need to say that to you guys because I know you're all very good at collaborating and finding communities and working together. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Amy. Gosh, there's a lot there. There's so much already done, actually. My first thoughts are, what do you want CEC teams to do? What are the first things that you'd like them to do?
Yeah, I think it would be amazing, again, just to link up, to sign up on the website and to find out more. Actually, because it's great if maybe for you guys as well to, obviously everyone wears different hats, and you can put on a different hat depending on your audience. Again, so for an MP, you might wear one hat. For activism, you might wear another hat. But it could be good to check out as well who's campaigning on the bill in your local area already, and because I'm sure they'll be interested in CEC, but sort of vice versa. It would be brilliant to have you guys come and help with the campaign. So one thing obviously that you can do if you haven't already is to actually write to your MP to ring them up to ask them to support the bill. The next step that you can do is to ask your family and friends to do the same. And then the next thing that you could do is to start to think in terms, like I said, of these local alliances. But I mean, you would be part of CEC, could be a member of that local alliance. So it may be that there's a group already active in your area that you could connect up with and helps to form that alliance of sort of like I said, local businesses, local organisations, individual campaigners. We've been having some successful meetings online with MPs, and also so we've been holding Kickstarter meetings in different areas. That might be something you're interested in. Again, sort of gather everyone who might be interested in an area and thinking about how to campaign. So do get in touch if you're interested in that. And also, yeah, we're going to be more and more working on this town hall meeting model. Obviously, it's dependent on COVID, but it can happen online. It's basically where you get, well, if it's in person, 200, 500 people in a room, you invite your MP, you have a sort of rally for the bill, and they're sort of shocked that so many people are there. You need to create this sort of, oh my God, moment so that they can really sort of feel the wave of support. But yeah, we'd love to support CECs more as well. And I know that we'd spoken to Phoenix and yourself, Ruth, about potentially having some sort of display or something like this in the buildings that are being used. But maybe I can put that back onto you guys as well, and thinking about if you're interested in supporting ways that you think might be interesting, or things you've tried already.
Over to the network. Anybody got any ideas or questions, or yeah, things they've tried? Judy.
Amy, it was really nice to hear all that. And I'd like to say I think the CEE Bill is a wonderful piece of legislation, and it's really great what you're doing and everything. But I'm really interested in your strategy also of getting more people, different groups, like in Somerset, the WI is quite strong, so that might be a good thing. Not talking about my own particular MP, but how are you going to get, what's your strategy generally for getting more conservative MPs on board? Because obviously it's not going to work unless you get some. So could you talk a little bit more about that particularly?
Yeah, definitely. It really is a matter. So we're obviously holding conversations behind the scenes, but it works really, really well to, again, just keeping building the pressure, because it makes our job so much easier to say, oh yes, I know, and oh, aren't they unreasonable, and oh, it's a bit much that they've written to you this many times, or oh my goodness, it was so big, this meeting. But you know, it really helps play this good cop bad cop game in a way. And again, this is this sort of strategy that has proven to work. It's this kind of pincer thing as well, where I think particularly the local council support is really key. So we held an event for Conservatives very recently. We had Sir David King was there, who used to be the scientific advisor to the government, who's very, very supportive, which is fantastic and really, really useful. We had several MP offices represented there, and some Conservative councillors who were supportive, and they were able to you know, put their hands up in the meeting and say to the MPs, why, come on, we back this, why aren't you, and surely it's time. So again, that sort of really helps us, particularly in public spaces. There are things like you can have panels of MPs. So we had one in Leeds recently. There actually it was all Labour MPs, but there were sort of various front bench MPs. Once Alex Sobel, who does support, there was someone else who's front bench that said he can't possibly because he's front bench, but Alex Sobel was able to say, excuse me, I already do. And again, it's this sort of public pushing moment that works really, really well. So yeah, it's keeping piling on the pressure. We're also going to keep working more with peers and in the Lords, getting more support there. The peer that supports us at the moment is Baroness Burma, so that's really fantastic. But yeah, keeping the pressure, and things like I said, to faith groups, farming communities, businesses, all these different types of organisations that Conservatives care about. is really important. We're speaking to the Conservative Environment Network as well, which are obviously really, really key. So yeah, all this work is happening behind the scenes, but I think the continual pressure and this myriad of voices is what will really work in the end.
Cool. Phoenix.
Yeah, and then I think Victor's got his hand up on the draw. So we'll say really exciting, really brilliant what you're doing. How can we all help each other? I mean, one of the things we want to do with the Climate Emergency Centre network is, you know, we're all autonomous and independent, but we are part of a bigger network. And how do we become more active members of that network? So, you know, you've got some resources there that the different groups could be putting out and things. How can we actually help to, raise more awareness on this and get groups and people involved? We went on an interfaith walk at the weekend, not my usual bag, but we went to Buddhist place, Hindu, Muslim, Christian church, and another one. And it really is about reaching out as far as you can to bring a wide alliance of groups together for Climate Emergency Centre and also for the CEE bill. So if there's any way we can help you guys in any way, we really support what you're doing. It really is about system change, and what you're doing is trying to bring a bill in. People moan about Parliament enough, but actually bringing a bill in that's going to change the whole system, you know, and the way we look at things is really, really important. So any way that our network can get on board and help more, let us know. I would love to see you come and do a physical conference, meeting, CEE Bill thing, invite all your Lords, MPs, companies, groups, and anyone who's signed up to come and have a stall here. You know, you're welcome to use Ilford at any point in the next 6-7 months. So yeah, really exciting what you're doing, really brilliant, but let's all try and magnify it and boost it wherever we are. And if you want to come and do a physical event here, that would be brilliant. And maximum respect, you're doing great work. It's really good. We need system change, not climate change. Over. That's my little inspirational blah. Back over to someone who's got something sensible to say.
Thanks, Phoenix. Nadia just pointed out, is there anything film-wise that we can show at a meeting or an assembly, something that can kind of like as an event, so you can kind of bring people together? Have you got any resources like that?
Any film of an event, for example? I think I would. Let me think in my head. So I know that so we've got several really strong groups. I know in Devon there's a huge amount of work going on. In Bristol, Leeds, in Oxfordshire as well. Loads and loads of work has been done. So I would, if you're interested in doing something like this, which would be really fantastic, I think the best thing to do is to get in touch via that campaign at CEE Bill email, because we can, or to come to one of the weekly shares and find out more. Because we can put you in touch, for example, with people that have already run these things successfully. So that's, I think, the best way is just to get on the phone and talk to groups that have been working in this way. And yeah, I think in terms of, I think sometimes people don't know what we're doing, and so it would be really good to think about how to share information more effectively. So whether that's us sort of sharing more on, I know you've got quite a good Telegram, or asking people to sign up, because our main way of spreading information is through people signing up, and like I said, through our newsletters, through emails, through this share session. But if you've got any advice on how we can just better let people know what we're doing, that would be really useful. And like we said, really someone called Casper Phoenix, I don't know if you know him already, is definitely going to get in touch about you know, some materials for the centres, and it would be brilliant to do more work. And perhaps some of these town hall meetings could happen in the centres as well. That could be an interesting combination of things.
Cool. Thanks, Amy. So, yeah, because one of the things I guess CEC teams can do is sign up as their CEC as a supporter. So individuals, because the network is signed up, but not the individuals, so they can all sign up as well. And then the individuals, people can just sign up as people. to support, and that's one of the, to getting people in the local areas to do that just builds those numbers. Cool. Yeah, Victor, did you want to come in with something?
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Great. I've got two questions. First is very small. Amy, how much time have we got before, before it's all too late to make progress on this? What sort of dates are we working towards? Because it was going to happen last year, wasn't it? And then it got shuffled away because of COVID.
Did you say we've got two questions, Victor? Or
Yeah, well, I have got a second question, but the first one was just to find out what the timescale is for getting, action on this from MPs. If people feel like, oh, I've only got 2 weeks, and they kind of think, oh, I've left it too late. But if we can say, look, we've got 12 months, we're going a long, hard drive at this. I'm just not sure where we're at.
Sure. So normally historically, these campaigns take between 3 and 5 years. We haven't got 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't got 5 years, so which is why we're sort of really trying to sort of super speed and develop the campaign as fast as possible by growing numbers as fast as possible and by trying to get as much grassroots activity through as fast as possible, as well as our sort of allies, CEC being one, and we've got now sort of, I think, over about 450 different allies, different types of organisations supporting. So just growing as fast as possible is really key to that strategy. So the way it works, like you might have heard some of you about the second reading and these second readings that have been taking place. And they, with private members' bills, it's always sort of shuffled because you're always, the private members' bills are always too far down the order paper for them ever to be heard. And you might think, well, why bother? But again, it's because you keep on the books. So we've got our second reading date coming up on the 29th of October. So again, it's a chance. One, it's a sort of marking point, and you can do some work. Caroline Lucas has actually got a debate on the 21st that we're going to do some work around, which is a debate on 1.5. We're going to have a hand in around this COP stuff on the 25th. So it all sort of fits within that time scale. So yeah, so we'll keep shuffling with those second reading dates until the end of the parliamentary session, and then you reintroduce the bill like we did this time. We've got a slightly different bill from the first one that's sort of a bit neater and more condensed, and also really boosted the nature element. So it's a bit of a long answer, but you never quite know what's going to happen, right? You never quite know which pushes will lead to it taking up by when, and sort of terrifyingly, we've got the sort of speed at which the climate and nature emergency is sort of showing itself, being on our side. And of course, that's awful. It shouldn't be that it's on our side because it shouldn't be happening. But there's a lot of pressure to act. There's a lot of pressure to act on climate and nature, which again, we expect the campaign to be a lot shorter than the usual 3 to 5 period because of that as well. So short answer, I think we'd expect to see it through in 2 to 3 years. We've been going now for just over 1, rather than the 3 to 5.
Thank you. That's very helpful, because for some reason I wrongly thought that there was a date coming up, and that was it. It was all cut off. But I have a better understanding. The other question about how we might engage with people is, I wondered whether there was any appeal in the crisis talks model that was used, I would say, to good effect during the recent Impossible Rebellion. My feeling was that a lot of people were open to talk about it and to express their feelings. I mean, the main idea of the crisis talks really was to let other people talk and to do some active listening. I was going to suggest that if we were doing crisis talks from the CECs, that engagement that gives people to say their piece and to express themselves, there's got to be a very good opportunity to get them on board with taking part in the campaign and signing up to it and being a part of the local pressure. So I wondered whether CECs can see a role in running crisis talks. That's really a broader question to Ruth and the network, but obviously for you as well.
Thanks, Victor. Good idea. Karen's just saying you ran one in July. How did that go?
It was good. We had a load of people that we would never have normally been in contact with, but it was trusted people. Kind of were traveling around with their van, and they hung out in the high street and then just persuaded people to come along in at the end of the afternoon into a centre, and yeah, it was very good. We probably need a lot more because, you know, it still was only a small group compared to the number of people living in Taunton. You know, it's a start.
Oh, Jenny?
Oh yeah, thanks so much, Amy, for telling us where you're up to. Really appreciate it. And maybe I could just add something. Well, I'm asking first of all about this becoming nature positive by 2030. Would you be able to say any more about that? Because I've got something from the Lawyers for Nature. Anyway, yeah, what would that look like? What sort of world would that be?
Yeah, so this comes from EJ Milner Goulond, I think you say her name. She's from the University of Oxford, and she runs the zoology department there, and they've been working a lot thinking in terms of goal, like basically targets to have an equivalent for climate, for nature as there is with climate, because I think historically there's been a real difficulty there when it comes to nature and the environment, because it's harder to measure because you have all these different indicators, right? So it may be genetic indicators, it may be biodiversity, it may be bioabundance, all of these different things. Plus, there's only really good quality data, I believe, going back to the 1970s, which is something else. It sounds like you might be aware of all that kind of stuff, Jenny, as well. So at the moment in COP15, they're still touting it as, with the global biodiversity framework, that it will become like the Paris Agreement for nature. And this global goal for nature has been very much part of that. So if you look up global goal for nature, you'll find a nice website with this really lovely graph as well, that's quite useful to think about. So we talk about it being nature positive. I know in all this blooming jargon, you think, what the hell does that actually mean? But we talk about it being on the baseline of 2020, because actually what's quite shocking is how actually nature depleted the UK is. And I think we're in the bottom 10 percentile. I don't know if it's in Europe, I think. But anyway, you know, we're in actually a really bad state. And if you think about how proud kind of we are in the UK of our sort of countryside and the rolling hills, and you forget that actually that's not necessarily in a sort of healthy state of nature, and how stripped our soil and all these kind of things become. So on the baseline of 2020, it has to be net positive, because if you sustain where we are now, that's actually pretty bad. So it has to be an improvement as of now, going forward. And it means that by 2030, that actually you have to see nature actively in recovery, and that has to be visible and measurable. Also, they talk about this thing called the conservation and mitigation hierarchy, I think. And again, I can share a link but that's all linked to EJ and her team's work. And it's basically saying that you have an order of priority, so that first of all, what you mustn't do is you mustn't sorry, getting tired. But if there is sort of a sort of healthy ecosystem, that you mustn't touch it. So, for example, if a forest, like first of all, don't cut down your forests and things that are already there and healthy. Number one. But it might be already that it's already chopped down and that you're already in a bad state. So, sort of the second thing in that hierarchy would be to actively grow, or there's this whole sort of series of 3 or 4 things in this hierarchy, but you're saying first of all, don't wreck what's already there, because if you're thinking in terms of sort of offsetting nature, for example, it's not the same cutting down an ancient forest and then just growing it somewhere else, because as we know, it takes so long to develop these really complex ecosystems. I can quickly share some links or
Thank you.
share them afterwards, but yeah, I hope that's the start.
Thank you. Yeah, and if it's okay, if I may say then that, you know, the key thing that I'm hearing that a lot of people respond to is loss of nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like across the board, loss of nature. That's in people's consciousness.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to hear you putting the nature part in here. And the part that Peter, what's his name, Paul Pousland from Lawyers for Nature. So he's a barrister himself, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what the point he's making is, what we need to do is we need to act as if these things have already happened. So he's talking about rights of rivers, yeah? Mm-hmm. So instead of he talks about being hostages of fortune, he reckons that what we need to do is actually act as if that this, like the rivers have already got rights, and that the CEE Bill has already gone through, yeah? And that we are already going to, you know, increase the diversity of, I don't know, whatever species in the whatever locality we have, yeah? Because he reckons that this whole thing of intention is like key, you know? So, you know, if we already set the intention, maybe even gather around a river and actually declare this river has the right to not have, I don't know, sewage in it. This river has the right to not have rubbish in it. You know, the power of already bringing about that intention. I'm not saying we shouldn't ask our MPs as well. I'm not saying that. I think it's fantastic what you're doing here. But you know what I mean? That double-pronged attack of just acting as if it's already happened. Nature's already got these rights. The river's already got the rights. The sea's got the rights. The land's got the rights. So just wanting to share that.
As you were speaking, Jenny, there was a couple of things that are coming up for me, because as Amy was talking, it became apparent that these basic things of like what the CE Bill is asking around nature and these sorts of things, having simple resources that people can put up or share so it's visual and easy to see is one useful thing. But then there's also something about CECs acting and doing those things that the CE Bill is saying, let's do this. Mm. We've kind of got those two things. We're doing this because it's in the CE Bill, and yeah. Planting all these things, or with whatever it might be.
Yeah, nice, thank you.
But linking them directly together and using it as
directly.
Yeah, really complimentary. Thanks, Jenny. I think that's really, really important. And I know, for example, you know, there's a lot of work that comes from Bolivia, and it's thinking about mountains having sort of basically human rights. And I think all that work is incredibly important. And I love the intention setting. It's really, even just for to keep energy going, you know, and to keep ourselves going and to keep ourselves positive in the face of such, scary things. I think that's a really useful mindset and connecting tool as well.
Yeah. Well, what it seems happens is then people start monitoring these places, and they start noticing that some sewage is going in there, and then you can track with it, because there is some legislation around this, so you can actually like follow people up on it. Do you know what I mean? And you can actually get changes anyway, because you then start monitoring it. You start going, oh yeah, this is my bit of the river to protect. You've made an intention.
Really nice.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. Thanks all. I'm aware of the time. I hope it's been helpful and people have got some ideas about what they can do. I think that we've got things like the crisis talks, having some kind of a film or event night. I'm wondering if using 2040 using it to talk about the CEE bill around that, or some sort of event like that. Accessing the resources, I guess, are they available on the website? Are there posters and some nice simple info leaflets on what the CEE bill is aiming to do, and acting out the CEE bill in your communities as well. So some nice ideas about what we do and what we can do. Council meetings, town hall meetings, use your CECs. Use those spaces. Brilliant. Okay, shall we do? I'm going to stop recording.